Paramahansa Yogananda, born Mukunda Lal Ghosh, was an Indian yogi and guru who introduced millions of Westerners to the teachings of meditation and Kriya Yoga through his book, Autobiography of a Yogi. Biography. Youth Yogananda was born in Gorakhpur, Uttar Pradesh, India, to a devout family. According to his younger brother, Sananda, from his earliest years young Mukunda's awareness and experience of the spiritual was far beyond the ordinary. In his youth he sought out many of India's Hindu sages and saints, hoping to find an illuminated teacher to guide him in his spiritual quest. Yogananda's seeking after various saints mostly ended when he met his guru, Swami Yukteswar in 1910. At the age of 17, he describes his first meeting with Yukteswar as a rekindling of a relationship that had lasted for many lifetimes. We entered a oneness of silence. Words seemed the rankest superfluities. Eloquence flowed in soundless chant from heart of master to disciple. With an antenna of irrefragable insight, I sensed that my guru knew God, and would lead me to him. The obscuration of this life disappeared in a fragile dawn of prenatal memories. Dramatic time, past, present, and future-eyed cycling scenes. This was not the first son to find me at these holy feet. Later on, Yukteswar informed Yogananda that he had been sent to him by Mahavatar Babaji for a special purpose. After passing his intermediate examination in arts from the Scottish Church College, Calcutta, in June 1915, he graduated with a degree similar to a current-day Bachelor of Arts B.A. from Serampore College, the college having two entities, one as a constituent college of the Senate of Serampore College and the other as an affiliated college of the University of Calcutta. This allowed him to spend time at Yukteswar's ashram in Serampore. In 1915, he took formal vows into the monastic Swami order and became Swami Yogananda Giri. In 1917, Yogananda founded a school for boys in Dihika, West Bengal, that combined modern educational techniques with yoga training and spiritual ideals. A year later, the school relocated to Ranchi. This school would later become the Yoga Satsanga Society of India, the Indian branch of Yogananda's American organization, Self-Realization Fellowship. Moved to America. In 1920, Yogananda went to the United States aboard the ship City of Sparta, as India's delegate to an international congress of religious liberals convening in Boston. The same year he founded the Self-Realization Fellowship to disseminate worldwide his teachings on India's ancient practices and philosophy of yoga and its tradition of meditation. For the next several years, he lectured and taught on the East Coast, and in 1924 embarked on a cross-continental speaking tour. Thousands came to his lectures. During this time he attracted a number of celebrity followers, including soprano Emilita Galli-Curci, tenor Vladimir Rosing and Clara Clemens Gabrielowicz, the daughter of Mark Twain. The following year, he established an international center for self-realization fellowship in Los Angeles, California, which became the spiritual and administrative heart of his growing work. Yogananda was the first Hindu teacher of yoga to spend a major portion of his life in America. He lived there from 1920 to 1952, interrupted by an extended trip abroad in 1935–1936, which was mainly to visit his guru in India, though he undertook visits to other living Western saints like Therese Newman, the Catholic stigmatist of Connors Ruth, and places of spiritual significance en route. In 1935, he returned to India to visit Yukteswar and to help establish his Yoga Satsanga work in India. During this visit, as told in his autobiography, he met with Mahatma Gandhi, and initiated him into the liberating technique of Kriya Yoga as Gandhi expressed his interest to receive the Kriya Yoga of Lahiri Mahasaya. Anandabari, renowned physicist Chandrasekhara Venkataraman, and several disciples of Yukteswar's guru Lahiri Mahasaya. While in India, Yukteswar gave Yogananda the monastic title of Paramahansa. Paramahansa means Supreme Swan, and is a title indicating the highest spiritual attainment. In 1936, while Yogananda was visiting Calcutta, Yukteswar attained Mahasamadhi in the town of Puri. After returning to America, Yogananda continued to lecture, write, and establish churches in Southern California. He took up residence at the SRF Hermitage in Encinitas, California, which was a surprise gift from his disciple Rajarsi Janakananda. It was while at this hermitage that Yogananda wrote his famous Autobiography of a Yogi and other writings. Also at this time he created an enduring foundation for the spiritual and humanitarian work of Self-Realization Fellowship, Yoga Satsanga Society of India. The last 4 years of his life were spent primarily in seclusion with some of his inner circle of disciples at his desert ashram in 29 Palms, California, to finish his writings and to finish revising books, articles and lessons written previously over the years. During this period he gave few interviews and public lectures. He told his close disciples, "I can do much more now to reach others with my pen." In the days leading up to his death, Yogananda began hinting that it was time for him to leave the world. On the 7th of March 1952, he attended a dinner for the visiting Indian ambassador to the U.S. Binay Ranjan Sen, and his wife at the Biltmore Hotel in Los Angeles. At the conclusion of the banquet, Yogananda spoke of India and America, their contributions to world peace and human progress, and the future cooperation, expressing his hope for a united world that would combine the best qualities of efficient America and spiritual India. Quote, according to an eyewitness, Dayamata, a direct disciple of Yogananda, who was head of the Self-Realization Fellowship from 1955 to 2010, as Yogananda ended his speech, he read from his poem My India, concluding with the words, "Where Ganges, woods, Himalayan caves, and men dream God, I'm hallowed, my body touched that sod." Quote, as he uttered these words, he lifted his eyes to the Kutastha center, and his body slumped to the floor. Followers say that he entered Mahasamadhi. His funeral service, with hundreds attending, was held at the SRF headquarters at Top Mount, Washington in Los Angeles. Rajarsi Janakananda, the new president of the Self-Realization Fellowship, performed a sacred ritual releasing the body to God. Yogananda's remains are interred at the Forest Lawn Memorial Park in the Great Mausoleum in Glendale, California. Teachings. In 1917, Paramahansa Yogananda began his life's work with the founding of a How to Live school for boys, where modern educational methods were combined with yoga training and instruction in spiritual ideals. Quote, in 1920, he was invited to serve as India's delegate to an international congress of religious liberals convening in Boston. His address to the Congress on the Science of Religion was enthusiastically received. For the next several years he lectured and taught across the United States. His discourses taught of the unity of the original teachings of Jesus Christ and the original yoga taught by Bhagavan Krishna. In 1920 he founded the Self-Realization Fellowship and in 1925 established in Los Angeles, California, USA, the international headquarters for SRF. Yogananda wrote down his aims and ideals for self-realization fellowship, Yoga de Satsanga Society, to disseminate among the nations the knowledge of definite scientific techniques for attaining direct personal experience of God, to teach that the purpose of life is the evolution, through self-effort, of man's limited mortal consciousness into God consciousness, and to this end to establish self-realization fellowship temples for God communion throughout the world, and to encourage the establishment of individual temples of God in the homes and in the hearts of men, to reveal the complete harmony and basic oneness of original Christianity as taught by Jesus Christ and original yoga as taught by Bhagavan Krishna, and to show that these principles of truth are the common scientific foundation of all true religions, to point out the one divine highway to which all paths of true religious beliefs eventually lead, the highway of daily, scientific, devotional meditation on God, to liberate man from his threefold suffering, physical disease, mental inharmonies, and spiritual ignorance, to encourage plain living and high thinking, and to spread a spirit of brotherhood among all peoples by teaching the eternal basis of the unity, kinship with God, to demonstrate the superiority of mind over body, of soul over mind, to overcome evil by good, sorrow by joy, cruelty by kindness, ignorance by wisdom, to unite science and religion through realization of the unity of their underlying principles, to advocate cultural and spiritual understanding between East and West, and the exchange of the finest distinctive features, to serve mankind as one's larger self. Yogananda wrote the second coming of Christ, the resurrection of the Christ within you, and God talks with Arjuna, the Bhagavad Gita, to reveal the complete harmony and basic oneness of original Christianity as taught by Jesus Christ and original yoga as taught by Bhagavan Krishna, and to show that these principles of truth are the common scientific foundation of all true religions. In his published work, The Self-Realization Fellowship Lessons, Yogananda gives his in-depth instruction in the practice of the highest yoga science of God realization, that ancient science is embodied in the specific principles and meditation techniques of Kriya Yoga. Yogananda taught his students the need for direct experience of truth, as opposed to blind belief. He said that the true basis of religion is not belief, but intuitive experience. Intuition is the soul's power of knowing God. To know what religion is really all about, one must know God. Echoing traditional Hindu teachings, he taught that the entire universe is God's cosmic motion picture, and that individuals are merely actors in the divine play who change roles through reincarnation. He taught that mankind's deep suffering is rooted in identifying too closely with one's current role, rather than with the movie's director or God. He taught Kriya Yoga and other meditation practices to help people achieve that understanding, which he called self-realization. Self-realization is the knowing in body, mind, and soul that we are one with the omnipresence of God, that we do not have to pray that it come to us, that we are not merely near it at all times, but that God's omnipresence is our omnipresence, and that we are just as much a part of Him now as we ever will be. All we have to do is improve our knowing. Kriya Yoga. The science of Kriya Yoga is the foundation of Yogananda's teachings. Kriya Yoga is union with the infinite through a certain action aright. The Sanskrit root of Kriya is Kri, to do, to act and react. Kriya Yoga was passed down through Yogananda's guru lineage. Mahavatar Babaji taught Kriya Yoga to Lahiri Mahasaya, who taught it to his disciple, Yukta Swagiri, Yogananda's guru. Yogananda gave a general description of Kriya Yoga in his autobiography. The Kriya Yogi mentally directs his life energy to revolve upward and downward. around the 6 spinal centers which correspond to the 12 astral signs of the zodiac, the symbolic cosmic man. 1/2 minute of revolution of energy around the sensitive spinal cord of man affects subtle progress in his evolution. That half minute of Kriya equals 1 year of natural spiritual unfoldment. Sri Marinalini Mata, current president of SRF-YSS, said, Kriya Yoga is so effective, so complete, because it brings God's love, the universal power through which God draws all souls back to reunion with Him, into operation in the devotee's life. Yogananda wrote in Autobiography of a Yogi that the actual technique should be learned from an authorized Kriya of self-realization fellowship. Autobiography of a Yogi. In 1946, Yogananda published his life story, Autobiography of a Yogi. It has since been translated into 42 languages. In 1999, it was designated one of the 100 most important spiritual books of the 20th century by a panel of spiritual authors convened by Philip Zaleski and HarperCollins Publishers. Autobiography of a Yogi is the most popular among Yogananda's books. According to Philip Goldberg, who wrote American Veda, the Self-Realization Fellowship, which represents Yogananda's legacy, is justified in using the slogan, "the book that changed the lives of millions." Quote, it has sold more than 4 million copies and counting. In 2006, the publisher, Self-Realization Fellowship, honored the 60th anniversary of Autobiography of a Yogi with a series of projects designed to promote the legacy of the man. Thousands of disciples still refer to as Master. Autobiography of a Yogi describes Yogananda's spiritual search for enlightenment, in addition to encounters with notable spiritual figures such as Therese Newman, Ananda May Madhvisuddhananda, Paramahansa Mohandas Gandhi, Nobel laureate in literature Rabindranath Tagore, noted plant scientist Luther Burbank, famous Indian scientists Sir Jagadish Chandra Bose, and Nobel laureate in physics Sir C.V. Raman. One notable chapter of this book is The Law of Miracles, where he gives scientific explanations for seemingly miraculous feats. He writes, the word impossible is becoming less prominent in man's vocabulary. The autobiography has been an inspiration for many people, including Steve Jobs, co-founder, former chairman, and chief executive officer of Apple Inc. In the book Steve Jobs, a biography, the author writes that in preparation for a trip, Mr. Jobs downloaded onto his iPad 2, the Autobiography of a Yogi, the guide to meditation and spirituality that he had first read as a teenager, then reread in India and had read once a year ever since. Claims of bodily incorruptibility, as reported in Time magazine on 4 August 1952. Harry T. Rowe, Los Angeles mortuary director of the Forest Lawn Memorial Park Cemetery in Glendale, California, where Yogananda's body was embalmed, wrote in a notarized letter, the absence of any visual signs of decay in the dead body of Paramahansa Yogananda offers the most extraordinary case. In our experience, no physical disintegration was visible in his body even 20 days after death. No indication of mold was visible on his skin, and no visible drying up took place in the bodily tissues. This state of perfect preservation of a body is, so far as we know from mortuary annals, an unparalleled one. No odor of decay emanated from his body at any time. Rowe continues, on March 27, there was no reason to say that his body had suffered any visible physical disintegration at all. For these reasons we state again that the case of Paramahansa Yogananda is unique in our experience. Robert Todd Carroll in his book The Skeptic's Dictionary wrote that the director of Forest Lawn may have given an accurate statement, but calling this lack of physical disintegration an extraordinary phenomenon is misleading. A typical embalmed body will show no notable desiccation for 1 to 5 months, without the use of refrigeration or creams. Legacy: Paramahansa Yogananda's dissemination of his teachings is continued through the organization he founded, the Self-Realization Fellowship, Yoga Satsanga Society of India. Yogananda founded Yoga Satsanga Society of India in 1917 and then expanded it in 1920 to the United States, naming it the Self-Realization Fellowship. In 1935 he legally incorporated it in the U.S. to serve as his instrument for the preservation and worldwide dissemination of his teachings. Yogananda expressed this intention again in 1939 in his magazine In a Culture for Self-Realization that he published through his organization. Paramahansa Swami Yogananda renounced all his ownership rights in the Self-Realization Fellowship when it was incorporated as a non-profit religious organization under the laws of California. March 29, 1935. At that time he turned over to the fellowship all of his rights to an income from sale of his books, writings, magazine, lectures, classes, property, automobiles and all other possessions. SRFYSS is headquartered in Los Angeles and has grown to include more than 500 temples and centers around the world and has members in over 175 countries, including the Self-Realization Fellowship Lake Shrine in India and surrounding countries. Paramahansa Yogananda's teachings are disseminated by YSS, which has more than 100 centers, retreats, and ashrams. Rajarsi Janakananda was chosen by Yogananda to become the president of SRFYSS when he was gone. Dayamata, a religious leader and a direct disciple of Yogananda who was personally chosen and trained by Yogananda, was head of Self-Realization Fellowship, Yoga Satsanga Society of India from 1955 to 2010. According to Linda Johnson, the new wave today is women, for major Indian gurus have passed on the spiritual mantle to women, including Yogananda to the American-born Dayamata and then to Mrinalini Mata. Mrinalini Mata, a direct disciple of Yogananda, is the president and spiritual head of Self-Realization Fellowship, Yoga Satsanga Society of India as of 2014. She too was personally chosen and trained by Yogananda to help guide the dissemination of his teachings after his death. She is assisted by the SRF Board of Directors, which includes other direct disciples of Yogananda trained by him.